A rock star is making love in a fog of passion, his wrists handcuffed to the bedposts, his breath heavy with desire. He doesn't know. It's his final moment alive. The woman on top of him suddenly pulls out an ice pick and brutally stabs him multiple times. It's brutal and completely unexpected. Detective Nick Curran and his partner Gus Moran arrive at the scene. The room is gruesome, blood on the walls, a stained bed sheet covering what's left of Johnny's body, and an ice pick covered with blood was recovered by the forensic team. But there's no sign of forced entry, so whoever did this, Johnny knew them. He trusted them. The detectives begin digging into Johnny's recent life. That's when they discover he was dating Catherine Tramell, a young, insanely rich, and breathtakingly intelligent novelist. Nick and Gus head over to Catherine's mansion in Pacific Heights, a huge, fancy place. But when they get there, Catherine isn't around. Instead, they meet Roxy, Catherine's girlfriend. Roxy is a sharp, confident woman who's protective of Catherine but doesn't seem to be hiding anything. She tells the detectives that Catherine is actually at her other home, this isolated beach house in Stinson. When they finally track Catherine down, they find her sitting on the patio, just smoking a cigarette like it's any other day. She's calm, almost indifferent. Nick and Gus ask her about Johnny, and she tells them they were not in a relationship but only had a passionate coitus. The detectives ask more questions, but Catherine asks them to either arrest her or leave, as she is not in the mood to answer anymore. Back at the station, things start to get weird. Nick and Gus learn that Catherine wrote a novel about a rock star who gets killed in almost the exact same way Johnny was, stabbed with an ice pick while tied up with a silk scarf. It's so on the nose it sends chills down their spines. When Catherine is brought in for questioning, she's the picture of control. She lights a cigarette and refuses to put it out, no matter how much they press her. She keeps crossing and uncrossing her legs slowly, and it becomes obvious she's not wearing any underwear beneath that short skirt. It's like she's daring the cops, playing mind games. You can tell she's toying with them, using her confidence and charm as weapons. It's clear Catherine isn't just a suspect, she's in charge of the whole twisted dance. So Nick, the detective, has a pretty messy past. He actually shot 2 tourists by accident while he was high on coke. Because of that, he's been going to therapy sessions with this police psychologist, Dr. Beth Garner. Turns out they've had an affair before, so things are complicated. After one tough interrogation, Nick and his co-workers hit a bar. There, Lieutenant Marty Nilsson, an internal affairs guy who really hates Nick, starts giving him a hard time, mocking him in front of everyone. Then Beth shows up, and Nick leaves the bar with her. They go back to Beth's apartment, and what starts as aggressive flirting quickly turns into sexual assault. It's intense and messy. Meanwhile, Nick digs into Catherine's background. Turns out she's had a rough life. Her parents died in a boating accident when she was a teenager, but she inherited a fortune. Back in college at UC Berkeley, one of her counselors, Noah Goldstein, was stabbed in his sleep with an ice pick, and Catherine was around at the time. Her ex-fiancé, Manny Vasquez, was a boxer who died in the ring during a fight in Atlantic City. On top of all that, Catherine's known to be friends with murderers like Hazel Dobkins, a woman who killed her husband and kids for no reason. Nick knows he is getting tangled up in something dangerous. She messes with him by bringing up stuff that's supposed to be confidential, things that only Beth knows. So Nick calls Beth out on it, and she admits she gave his file to Nilsson, the internal affairs guy. Nick loses it. He storms into Nilsson's office, hits him, and accuses him of leaking his file to Catherine. They threw him out, and he went straight home. Beth comes over to Nick's apartment, maybe looking to reconcile or maybe just to return the keys. But the air between them is thick with resentment. Their conversation escalates quickly into a heated argument. Accusations are thrown, and old wounds resurface. Nick, clearly still raw from everything spiraling out of control, finally snaps and kicks her out. Beth storms off, slamming the door behind her. Later that night, a shocking discovery shakes the department. Lieutenant Nilsson is found dead in his car, a single gunshot wound to the head. The weapon was a .38 caliber, the same kind of weapon that had come up before. Because of the earlier fight with Nilsson and Nick's strained behavior lately, suspicion falls on him fast. He's hauled into the station for questioning. The tension in the room is palpable, but Nick denies any involvement in Nilsson's murder. His voice is steady, but there's an undercurrent of exhaustion. Beth storms into the room and, surprisingly, comes to his defense. She tells the investigators she was at Nick's place that night, returning his keys, confirming his alibi. It's just enough to get him off the hook, at least for now. After leaving the station, Nick catches up with Beth. His tone softens as he thanks her for standing by him. She assures him that she will always support him. Nick arrives at his apartment. He's startled to see Catherine waiting outside. She knows about Nilsson and asks Nick why Gus hates her. Nick says he likes her and invites her in. Nick knows she's playing a game, but he's not sure if he's a participant or the target. They began to talk, and the conversation is laced with suggestion and suspicion. Catherine casually mentions the murder, her voice dripping with ambiguity. Nick pushes, but she deflects with charm and innuendo. As she leaves, she crosses paths with Gus on the stairs. Their eyes meet, silently acknowledging the dangerous web tightening around Nick. Later that night, Nick attends a club party. He spots Catherine on the dance floor with Roxy. They lock eyes, and Catherine dances her way toward him. It's a challenge. Nick moves in, and they begin to dance, close and crackling with energy. Their chemistry explodes. Cut to Nick's apartment. Their passion boils over as they have intense, animalistic coitus. Catherine takes control, tying Nick's wrists with a white silk scarf, just like in the scene from her novel, and just like how Boz was found murdered. For a terrifying second, Nick panics, thinking if she is reenacting the murder. She continues and won't break her sensual rhythm. It's only sex, or is it? Nick wakes up alone. A note waits for him that says, "The beach." He heads out and finds Catherine and Roxy by the shore. They act casual, like friends on a holiday. Roxy watches him with silent jealousy. She soon leaves, and Nick and Catherine take a quiet walk along the beach. Catherine deflects questions with poetic metaphors and cryptic lines. Nick can't read her, and that makes her even more dangerous. Later, Nick meets Gus at a local bar. Gus starts grilling him, subtly at first, then bluntly. He suspects Nick slept with Catherine. Nick admits it without words. Gus is furious. He slams his drink, disappointed and angry, and storms out, saying Nick is making the biggest mistake of his life. As Nick walks back to his car, headlights suddenly flare up. Catherine's car comes roaring toward him. The driver tries to run him down, again and again, in a deadly game of cat and mouse. Nick barely dodges the car each time. He gives chase, adrenaline surging. The car races through the streets until it finally crashes off the road. Nick rushes to the wreck and finds Roxy behind the wheel, bloody and dying. Paramedics and cops arrive. Nick is left rattled and confused. His captain rips into him. "I told you to stay away from Catherine Tramell," he shouts. The frustration is boiling over. Nick has blurred every line, professional, personal, and moral. Now he's too deep to get out. After her death, it came out that Roxy had a dark past. When she was a teenager, she killed her two brothers with a razor. Her juvenile record had stayed hidden because those records are sealed until the person dies. Nick is brought in for a psychiatric evaluation with Beth and two other doctors. The atmosphere quickly becomes confrontational. When questioned about his anger and views on a colleague's death, Nick responds with sarcasm and defiance, mocking the evaluation process, accusing him of sleeping with Catherine. Their exchange turns volatile, revealing jealousy, emotional manipulation. Nick counters by exposing Beth's own manipulative nature, accusing her of being no different from Catherine. Later, Nick visits Catherine, who actually seems genuinely upset about Roxy dying, and asks Nick to make love to her, and they do. Later, Catherine talks about a college fling that went wrong. A girl named Lisa Hoberman got obsessed with her. Nick tries to find out about her and figures out that Lisa is actually Beth Garner. Beth admits the fling happened but flips it around, saying it was Catherine who got obsessed. Then it's found out that Beth's husband was killed in a drive-by shooting, and the bullet was from a .38 caliber revolver. Nick shows up at Catherine's house. He spots the last pages of her new detective novel sitting on a printer. He quickly skims through and reads how a detective was found dead, legs sticking out of the elevator doors. Catherine comes in and tells Nick she's finished the book. Then, cold as ice, she ends their affair right there like it was nothing. Nick, feeling shaken, meets up with Gus. Gus has set up a meeting with Catherine's college roommate at a hotel to get the real scoop on Catherine and Beth. While Nick waits in the car, Gus steps into the hotel elevator. Suddenly, a hooded figure jumps out and stabs Gus multiple times in the neck with an ice pick. Nick senses something's wrong and rushes inside, but it's too late. He finds Gus dead, just like in the book, with his legs hanging out of the elevator doors. Nick hears the elevator floor creak and turns to see Beth standing in the hallway. She says she was asked to meet Gus there, but Nick suspects her. When Beth moves her hand into her pocket, Nick shoots her. With her last breath, Beth tells Nick she loved him. Nick, feeling crushed and confused, checks Beth's pocket after shooting her, but there's nothing there except her keys. The cops show up and find a blonde wig, an SFPD raincoat, and an ice pick hidden in a staircase. Turns out, Beth must have ditched those things when she heard Nick coming. When they search Beth's apartment, they find everything they need to pin all the murders on her. The revolver that matches the murder weapon, copies of Catherine's novels, and photos that track Catherine's life. At the police station, the other detectives put the pieces together fast and decided that Beth was the killer. But Nick sits at his desk, totally torn up, because he remembers how Catherine somehow knew exactly how Gus would die. He's convinced Catherine is the real killer and that she tricked everyone by framing Beth. Nick steps into his apartment, tense but knowing what's coming. Catherine is already there, waiting for him, calm and collected like nothing's wrong. He can see right through her. He knows she's the killer, the one behind all the murders and manipulation. Catherine breaks the silence, explaining why she's been so distant, why she's held back from fully committing to him. She says it's not easy for her to trust or be vulnerable, but there's something real between them. Something complicated. Nick listens but stays guarded, his eyes never leaving her. Then, despite everything, their attraction takes over and they begin making love. A fierce, passionate moment that feels both dangerous and inevitable. Later, as they lie tangled together, their conversation turns to what might come next, what their future could look like as a couple. Nick cautiously imagines a life that includes love, sex, maybe even kids, but there's a wariness in his voice, like he's trying to convince himself as much as her. Catherine looks away briefly, then admits she hates children. That admission shifts the mood. Nick teases that if kids are off the table, then their future will just be about sex. No strings attached. As they talk, Nick turns his back to her, unaware of what Catherine's hand is doing. Slowly, deliberately, she reaches beneath the bed, fingers searching for something hidden out of sight. Nick's voice trails off, a little nervous now, but Catherine stops reaching just as quickly as she started. She wraps her arms around him, pulling him close with a seductive smile, making him forget his doubts. Their bodies reconnect, passion rising again. The camera slowly pans down to the floor, revealing the object Catherine was reaching for, a gleaming ice pick lying just inches from where they lay. The scene closes on that chilling image, leaving the question hanging: will Nick survive this deadly game?